Éditorbo, zéro. Création d'une chambre de métier pour les petites et moyennes entreprises, zéro. Création d'une compagnie maritime régionale, zéro. Convertir la citadelle en un espace artistique, my goodness, zéro. Banque pour les petites et moyennes entreprises, zéro. And the list is long. Unfortunately, it's late and there are many people speaking after me, otherwise I would have carried on. Madam Speaker, I stated earlier, people have no trust in this government. They are angry. They are disgusted when they see what government they have today and what was promised in December 2014. Let us see about transfers itself. This government has in its troop now 5 transfers. 1 minister transfers, 1 PPS transfers. Can you imagine? What did they say in the program? At paragraph 256 of the presidential address, the program, government program, their program, 2015-2017, it was written. An anti-defection legislation will be introduced to make it more difficult for employees to cross the floor. More difficult? Huh? No, today they are making it easier by thanking them for a post of either PPS or minister, and God knows what they have received behind the scene. Huh? And you want the people out there to trust you? And Mr. Honorable VEDA tells us we have to be consistent. We politicians, we have to give example of consistency. I will come, there's a lot more than that. Let it now come to corruption. Corruption. That was one of the main issues during the campaign, corruption. Chapter 4 of the presidential address, which relates to good governance, and paragraph 246 mentioned, and I quote, government has a mandate for change and will relentlessly fight fraud, corruption, and financial crime. To that end, a financial crime commission will be set up as an apex body to oversee the ICAC, the Financial Intelligence Unit, the Enforcement Department of the FSC. 2.5 years has gone now. Your government I'm talking about, you should take responsibility, collective responsibility. Don't say, madam. Think what you have done. Huh? No. What the Prime Minister has done. He was the Prime Minister. 2.5 years after, you fight for corruption. Where is your fight for corruption? Where is the Financial Crime Commission? In fact, ICAC today, it's unfortunate to say, it's not the ICAC that the MSM government created in 2003 or 2002. You remember Honorable Colin Davelu chaired the commission. I was in that commission.
Address another honorable member.
Honorable Gayan was there.
Talk to him.
We prepare a report. We prepare a bill to create the ICAC. And today, what is the ICAC we have today? Both the Labour Party and this government has destroyed the ICAC we set up in 2002, 2003. And what is worse, Madam Speaker, and I will go a bit lengthy in that because I was thrown out on Tuesday, last Tuesday, I think. Yes. When I mentioned Buscalis. And you know, when I was thrown out, everybody out there was, hey, get this a Buscalis. Some thought it's a sweet, a cake, an insult. And you were expelled because you mentioned Buscalis.
Oh, no. You were not expelled because you...
Because I was referring to...
You were expelled because you ignored the chair.
Yes, but there was... I don't want to go back to that issue. I was not the only one ignoring the chair. There was a brouhaha. I don't know you heard only my voice. Never mind, I was expelled. Because Buscalis, let me come to Buscalis in detail for people out there, for the nation to know who is advising, who is the senior advisor of a Prime Minister. And we will know why is it that there is a perception that allegation of fraud and corruption everywhere at the top level of government. No, there is not. Boskalis is finished. I'm talking about not the case against Mr. Mantua. I'm doing the case of Boskalis, which is finished. Judgment has been ordered. Sentence has passed. And I know that case, and Honorable Colin Davelu know that case very well. Boskalis is a German company which deals with the drainage of port. Dutch. It's a Dutch company, sorry. Dutch company, there's a port. At that time, there was a tender. No, that cannot be in the case. They were charged, the directors of Boskalis were charged for 8 count. 8 count. They are pleaded guilty. What you mean a judgment? The judgment is here. 8 count, and among the 3 counts, 4 was against one gentleman, and 4 counts were against. I will read the charge. Count 7. That in and about the year 2006, one Boskalis International, represented by etc., by Mr. Jan Cornelis Hack, in the present case having a registered office address as Oswald in Germany, did willfully and unlawfully agree with one Ramprau Kasmantura, 57 years, consultant residing at Avenue Queen of L'Oréal, to do an act which is unlawful, and Boskalis pleaded guilty.
Baloomoody, please. Honorable Baloomoody, please give way. Yes.
Madam Speaker, the Honourable Member is talking about a case which is still pending. I know that this is a different case, but it has a bearing on the case that is still pending. So I think it is a cursus in the Parliament that we should not talk about matters which are still sub judice. So I will urge the member to refrain from talking about it.
No.
It is a motion. It is on the website. The judgment is on the website.
Has a judgment been given in this case?
Yes, of course. I will come to the judgment and table the judgment.
Hold on. Why are you getting excited? Please sit down. I'm asking you a question. Will this Boskalis case have a bearing on the case which is in court right now and which is in shape? This is the question I have. Because if that Boskalis case has a bearing on that case which is in course, then the matter is sub judice and it cannot be discussed over here.
As a matter of procedure and evidence, a judgment in one case is not admissible in another case. So I am going to file the judgment, which I'll lay on the table, judgment 23, intermediate court, 288. And the particulars of the charge is more interesting. $25,000 was given to Mr. Prakash Mantua. This is count 7. Now we have count 8. Same act. Did willfully and unlawfully agree with one Prakash Mantua. This time, $60,000 US. And the company was represented by counsel.
I'm sorry, please can you table your document? And I'll take some few minutes, I'll study this, and then I'll come back for a ruling. Table your document. Table your document. Table your document. I suspend the sitting for 15 minutes.
I am just repeating what I did 2 years ago, but now I am being informed that I can't speak about Boskalis. Okay, I obey your...
Honourable Member, no. I didn't tell you that you can't speak about Boskalis. I told you that if you are inferring, taking from the case of police versus Boskalis, you take from this case and you infer that Mr. Prakash Mantua is guilty, then I told you that you can't do this.
It's a fact he's on bail for corruption offences and money laundering offences. Okay, let's wait. Let's leave it here. Let's go to other issues. Now let me turn to the issue of wastage and abuse in the use of public funds. Let me refer Your Lordship, Madam Speaker, to paragraph 8 and 9 of the government program. Paragraph 8 of the government program reads as follows. Government is committed to conducting business on the principles of discipline, transparency, accountability, and exemplary governance. And paragraph 9 reads as follows. This implies, amongst others, responsible and judicious use of public funds and a crusade to weed out wastage. And there is a list. I'm not going to read the whole list. Let me read this one. And listen to this one. This is interesting. Honorable Gayan, probably that will interest you. Freeing our society from the shackles of widespread corruption, favoritism, nepotism, mafias, and political interference. This is the government program. This is what this government was elected to do. What has happened since December 2014, Madam Speaker? One thing is certain. Two things is certain. Three things is certain. Mafia has infiltrated most of our public institutions. I did not say that. Honorable Pravin Jagannath says it. 2.5 after this government, mafia has infiltrated most of our institutions. Favoritism has been the practice of the day. Fortunately, Honorable Fowler wasn't here. I'm sure he would have tapped la table when I'm saying so. Nepotism. When it comes to drugs, when you see the mafia, when you're talking about mafia, what a coincidence, Madam Speaker. What a coincidence. When I read the papers today at what's happening before the Commission of Inquiry on Drugs, it reminds me of the Commission Roux. I was counsel together with my friend Colin Davido, not for a trafficker, but for a senior politician at the time, before Commission Roux. The MSM was in power at that time. Coincidence was it that again today the MSM is power. Mafia at that time had infiltrated the police, the prison, the custom, even parliament. We should not forget about the Amsterdam boys. 4 MSM MP were arrested in Amsterdam with a VIP passport, diplomatic passport with drugs. Sorry? They were MSM, government of MSM, I don't know. Yeah, but some trust fees who are joined the MSM. You want it that way? Peladwa was at MSM?
Order. Order.
Peladwa was at MSM?
No. Honorable Baloomoody, don't let yourself to be interrupted by what they are saying. I'm asking them to keep on, but then don't let yourself be interrupted by them. Please proceed with your speech, but I would ask on the other side not to interrupt him.
Anyway, they were members of the government. I don't know what they were, because this government as well, we don't know who they are, transfers or what. They had diplomatic passport issued to them by the Prime Minister. They went through the VIP authorized by the then Prime Minister. And they were arrested. And when you look at the paper today, at least history repeating itself. Mafia La Drogue was climbing the stairs of power in that day. And today we have Mr. Dede, I won't mention his name, and Zanfant Lacaz, Suntrust, L'Enfant La Cuisine, arrested for drugs. What a coincidence. Madam Speaker, when we come with regard to appointment of close relatives, nepotism, copain, copine, urging huge sums of money. They decided by themselves we will make an allowance of 100,000 rupees for the next 6 months for themselves. We all know. I'm not going to go through the list. It's too long. The 19 million barrister lawyer fees, the trust fund for the heart, scandal, ICTA, IBA, so many advisors, etc., etc. This is a government which was elected to free our country from corruption, favoritism, nepotism, mafia, and political interference. Let's not talk about political interference when we know. You know today, Madam Speaker, what is funny? If you make a declaration against a member of the government, you become the victim. Somebody say he has bribed one minister. The minister go and make a declaration, they arrest the one who has made the declaration. So if you make a declaration today against a member of the government, your declaration is not investigated upon. You are being investigated upon. Hein? Interference politique. The Minister of Industrial Relations is not here, but it's good that I shall speak with regard to industrial relations in the public sector. You know, there was big tam-tam here when we voted the police. Now the police will have the union. Now the police will fight their case. Now, you see, we have done that. When I spoke, I was standing there, remember, I told them this won't work in practice. In fact, police will be victimized. There will be more problems. Let's see, in the public sector. I don't know whether it is with the benediction of the government or not. In the post office, do you know, Madam Speaker, but I won't to talk much about the post office because I am counsel in this case. The president of the union is suspended and is being called before a disciplinary committee. The case is before the Supreme Court now. There's a case. I won't talk about that. We come with regard to the prison. Again, the secretary of the general of that prison, of the union of the prison, is being suspended because he has said things in the course of negotiation at a tribunal, at the CM, the arbitration at the Ministry of Labor's Reconciliation Commission, and he's supposed to appear before this disciplinary committee very soon. The police officer, who is the president of one of the biggest unions in the police, because he made a statement for the welfare of the police officers, within 12 hours, not even 24, 12 hours, he has been transferred. Knowing that in Port Louis he will have to do his activities as a trade union, they transfer him to Maibo. Prosecutor of the intermediate court, degraded, go to Mayberg, district court level, just because he is the president of a trade union. And nothing from that Minister of Labour who is supposed to safeguard the interests of our trade unionists. No mention whatsoever. No mention whatsoever in his speech with regard to the way that certain public services are treating union leaders. Intimidating them, discriminating against them, taking disciplinary action against them just because they are protecting the interests of their members. Fighting, not protecting even, fighting for the interest of their members. And what is worse, Madam Speaker, on the 27th of March, the Police Officers Solidarity Union held a press conference at Marie-Reine de la Paix. Do you know? I don't know who took the decision, whether it was the Commissioner of Police or the one responsible for the Central CID, but members of the Central CID were sent there to intimidate people not to attend that meeting. And the matter was reported. They came in a government car, 134 GN10. members of the Central CID were sent there to intimidate them so that they could not hold their press conference. This is with a blessing, I don't know whether with or without, but I hope the Minister for Industrial Relations will intervene to ensure that trade unions, be it in the private sector, be it in the public sector, wherever they exist, be allowed to carry on their business as trade unionists. And when the commissioner, the representative of the trade union of the prison, speak to the commissioner of prison, you know what he has to say? You know the standing orders. He still mentioned about prison council. There is no mention in the prison of the trade unions, the standing orders. And this has been here since the Employment Rights Act for more than 10 days, for more than 10 years. They have not bothered even to amend the standing orders. And today the union of the prison is not being recognized because the union, they still have in the standing orders council, union, prison council. Even in the police force, you know the Employment Rights Act stipulates that any person who appeared before the disciplinary committee is allowed to be accompanied by a representative of the labor office or a council of his choice. Although we have a union now in the police, council is still barred from assisting their client in case of disciplinary committee. And nothing is being done to change that standing order. Nothing is being done by the Minister of Labour to ensure that we have, that those who appeared in the disciplinary committee is allowed to have counsel of the church to assist them at the level of the disciplinary committee, not at the level of the inquiry when the magistrate chair the meeting, the disciplinary committee, but at the level of the inquiry at the board level, like we have disciplinary committee, internal disciplinary committee, but internal disciplinary committee, they are not allowed. Now, let me come to the police force. The Honourable Minister of Finance, when he addressed the issue of the police, straight, well, loudly, I am now, yes, tackling law and order. Let me now turn to law and order. I am providing 8.4 million to the police force as follows, and he gave details. Billion. 8.4 billion to the police force. And you know how much it was last year for the police force? 8.7 billion. 8.7 billion last year. This year we 8.5 billion, and they want us to believe they are going to tackle the problem of law and order. When the funds is not even being provided. What a joke. There are other many issues in the police force. The morale is low, very low. Those who practice at the bar, who meets the police officers nearly every day, we know about it. My friend Tilak Dari knows it very well. We know. Several recommendations of the PRB has not been implemented yet, such as bank of police officers for overtime. They were supposed to have an inquiry allowance when they do inquiry. This has not been paid yet. Extrajudicial allowance, not paid yet. Cash in lieu when working on public holidays, payment are made 6 to 8 months after. Do you know, Madam Speaker? Those police officers, poor police officers who have been working on the 1st and 2nd of January. When the nation is celebrating, they are working. Up to today, they have not been paid their allowance for working on public holidays. The police academy, it has been in all the budgets for the last 5 or 6 years that I've been here. In fact, most of the budget keeps repeating police academy. Lack of training, lack of equipment. Now we are in winter. Up to now, their cardigan and their socks has not been provided. There's a shortage. They will be told to wear last 2 years cardigan. Huh? You see the police force we want. Those who were promoted, recruited in 214, has not been confirmed up to now, nearly 3 years after. And you want these people to be motivated? And this is in breach of the DFSC regulation, which stipulates that appointment has to be confirmed within a period of not more than 12 months. 2.5 years later, Honorable bosses probably have to look into that matter. 2.5 years later, they are not confirmed. And we want them to have the courage, the morale, to fight law and order. I better not to talk about the police station, most of them. But there's one which still has to be mentioned. It has been mentioned nearly every year. The one at Mocha. My goodness. Huh? When you go there, I was there 3 weeks ago. On the table, when you enter, there's no books. Na lamok. Kat lamok no la table. Because it is leaking. Kat lamok. Not even the occurrence book. My friend, in fact, I met, you know who. They were all complaining, the officer there. We had to go in a small room behind when I started taking to give the statement to my client. This is Mocha, this is modern, our modern police for Singapore. And the police is celebrating the 250 years this year. Huh? If you go in front of this police station, you have to laugh. When you see a banner like this in front of Mocha police station, what's written on? Service with care, pride and honor. How can you service with care, pride and honor such police station where lamok is on the table when you enter that police station? Now, the prison. This is another disaster. You will be surprised to learn some people prefer to stay in the prison than some drug addicts. There's a fella plus facile là-bas, Michel, qui dit, oh. Laisse-moi dormir. Their parents come and see you to make an application for bail. And you can visit them. Say, no, 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 no. You agree with me. No, 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 no. Correct là. Ici, moi, j'ai un mot racho. J'ai un mot dose. Police. The union are being victimized. What about access to prison? I raised one issue once with regard to religious persons who are allowed to enter prison. And up to now, I have not received an answer. Religious persons were allowed to enter prison without the consent of the Prime Minister's office. No, not this one, the one. There is cameras who are not working. We have visited when I was member of the PAC. A lot of cameras are not working. They are here just for the sake. And two people looking, if they work, if one day they decide to have all of them function, only two people will have to watch 80 cameras. 4 liges, vous avez 80 caméras. But again, I put a question to the Honorable Mr. Mento. I'm still waiting for the answer. The budget make provision for installation of 2 scan camera. Scan machine when you enter. Interesting. But what's the point of having this scan machine if they don't use them? Are you aware, Madam Speaker, that there is a team there called Venkatset team? These people are allowed to enter the prison anytime they want. and leave the prison anytime they want without being searched. I asked a question to the Honorable Mr. Manto. And this is my information. They come. Now, you are searched when you enter. We were searched when we entered as Member of Parliament. But this search stopped at 4. L'équipe 24-7 come after 4. Yes, in the prison there's a team called 24-7. They are supposed to be the top guy who anytime can enter a police cell, search, without the permission of anyone who is on duty. They have that authority which has been given to them by the Commissioner of Prison. 24-7 team. And again, I raise that issue, but it is becoming worse. Relationship between the prison and the Human Rights Commission, especially the NPMD division. You know, since the chairperson of that division has made in report with regard to the alleged suicide of Irvin Arichern in the Mocha Detention Center le 31 Octobre 2016, and this division is supposed to go and visit prisoners. He's supposed to go and see cases of brutality reported against them by members of the prison. Since that report has been outdated the 1er November 2016, there is no collaboration between that unit of the Human Rights Commission with the prison officers. And my information, is not to be verified, it is confirmed information. The number of brutality in the prison is on the increase. And if things go as it is, we are flirting a revolution in the prison, mutiny, if action is not taken. Now, I wanted to raise this issue under the heading of the Minister of Mentor and also Minister of Labour because they concern industrial relation and the safeguards, the interest of prison officers and labour officers, and prison officers and police officers. Now that issue, in the budget itself, the Minister of Labour was very interesting, excited to say, yes, we managed to put a job placement. 4,787 people. Excellent. Placement. But how many was placed in a job for the year 2016-2017? This is official figures. 4,787 put on job placement. Only 906 managed to secure a job. Manipulating the figures just to come to tell us that unemployment is low or is getting down. And 2 months ago, I think it was in April, I raised the matter at adjournment time. And I was informed by the Ministry of Labour that an inquiry is being carried on at the level of the Ministry of Education, and very soon we will know about the outcome of these ladies. The question of having a national investment authority. The union are very concerned. And you don't blame them. Because government intend to use the money of the National Pension Fund, who have their own internal investment committee, and the National Saving Fund to hold that in that Mauritius National Investment Authority. And here we are talking about the salaries of workers. their sweat, some even give the blood to have their money in that institution to secure a pension. And when we know the way this government approach chikopin, favoritism to head authorities, when we know political interference, we know what happened, Honorable Lakshmi Naraidu, when he stood up that evening or the day after when there was a PNQ with regard to the BAI and Brahmaberg. Candidly he said, no problem. State Bank will take Brahmaberg, SICOM will take National Insurance, the BAI, the insurance board. As if this belonged to government. Jouer avec l'argent, la sueur, travailler, and this we are against, and we are happy that the trade unions, and we will support the trade unions to make sure that their money, their sweat, their contribution is not misused, abused, dilapidated by government authorities. Then there is that issue of duty-free car for confederation, the syndicats. You know, there are not many confederations. According to my information, there are apparently 9 confederations and 27 federations. And they have not asked for minibus like what is being proposed in the budget. They are merely asking for a 4x4 duty-free. And what we are talking about, 27 4x4 duty-free for 27 federations. I'm sure the government can use that and make sure that, because they have to do checks, they have to go on the site to see the condition under which our workers, they don't sit in the office. And some of our colleagues on the side does. They go around, they go à l'autre terrain. There is also a matter of concern regarding, this is really a matter of concern, the amendment to the National Identity Card Act. When we know all the problems we have had to postpone cases in courts, Privy Council cases, my friend on the side, Tilak Dari, knows very much about it, and we managed to get at least one thing, that this data belongs to the owner of the card and will not be used for any other purpose whatsoever without his consent. And this has been said by the Privy Council in the judgment of Madeu versus the state of Mauritius, Privy Council's judgment. Because what we have in that court is a private right. It's a right belong to that human. It's his right, his personal rights. And this has not been followed by only the Privy Council. It reflects in that judgment. This is the sentiment across Europe with regard to the European Commission of Human Rights. And now we want to amend this Identity Card Act to let private people have access. Third parties have access to our page 41, reads as follows. C'est National Identity Card Act. The National Identity Card Act will be amended to allow reading card data by both public and private agencies, as may be determined by the Ministry of Technology and Communication and Innovation according to set criteria. So now we are going away, completely away. Embrace of international regulation, institution, and international human rights issues, giving a third party access to data which is found in our identity card. And this will create. You have already spoken, unfortunately. You have not explained. You should have done it before. No, you should read the paper, read the concern of the people out there. Read the paper, all the unions, everybody are concerned. All human rights people are concerned. You should have come with a statement on that issue. We are talking about national identity card. Now, in the annex to the budget, at section A8, tax administration, and the paragraph B, it reads, in line with the internal move towards automatic information exchange. What pretext? And in order to enable the proper tracking through movements of substantial funds linked with drugs dealing and money laundering scheme, the Income Tax Act will be amended to empower MRA to request from banks, insurance companies, and non-bank depository institutions, etc., exceed 500,000 rupees, or if the aggregate amount of deposit is an income exceeds 4 million. This we have no problem. If there's a suspicion of drugs trafficking, money laundering, or even terrorism, this we have no problem. But look, paragraph B. Necessary amendments will be made to ensure that the obligation on a person to furnish data and information that requires for purpose of, and now it is for purpose of enforcement tax laws, parity provisions of the data protection information, etc., and they're coming. So now, for enforcement tax laws, if you do a transaction of 5 for all, now the MRA is allowed only to ask for interest paid on your deposit without a judge's order. But now, they will be allowed to ask for all details of all transactions. Pretesting compliance with an international norm, and particularly strategy to combat drug dealing and monitoring, government is empowering the MRA privacy. First, and this is important, on the right to the confidentiality of his bank account, and secondly, on his right to the protection of his personal data. So today, the MRA, under the pretext that you are doing a transaction of 500,000 rupees and your turnover is 4 million rupees, he goes to that bank and says, I want all the account of this company or gentleman, and the bank has to give without a judge's order. So we are creating a big brother. And when we know the misuse, the abuse there have been by certain institutions recently for political vendetta, we have to be careful. This is not necessary because, as I've said, the reasons spelled out in Annex to the budget, namely drug dealing and money laundering, are themselves enough. A robust arsenal of powers is already vested in the Financial Intelligence Unit and to the ICAC under the FIAMLA and the POCA respectively. Care and caution have been used to strike a right balance between the necessity to protect the rights to bank confidentiality and the need of information for public authorities to carry out their function. The MRA is by far not the primary institution having responsibility to investigate into drug dealing and money laundering. MRA's statutory purpose is to administer and collect taxes. It is only marginally incidentally involved in the investigation of drug trafficking or money laundering. It's good to note that in the peer-review supplementary report of the OECD, under paragraph 112, banking information, dealing with availability of banking information on all account holders, the phase 2 findings published on the 24th of April 2014 was that Mauritius was fully compliant. So if we are fully compliant, why do we have to give the MRA that power? Is it again to punish people? As regard to the derogation to the Data Protection Act to allow access to personal data by the MRA, It is wondered how this measure can be linked up with the collection of taxes. The Act's protection is to the least dubious, while the reason for this derogation remains nebulous. So this is, Madam Speaker, another dangerous amendment the government intends to come with. Let me say a few words on art and culture, because I've been approached by certain artists in my constituency. Number one, there's a request that the IBA Act be revised to make it a must on our radios or public broadcasters also produce, because nowadays they are only around 8%, and 82% of the copyrights money, the cash money, goes to foreigners. Apparently Michael Jackson's still the first one, whilst our local artist is earning peanuts. So probably we have to look, Mr. of Art and Culture, look into amending probably the IBA, impose upon them that they should at least play. Yes, why not? You can. You impose upon them when we want to broadcast our wedding.
No, you can't engage in any conversation.
So if you don't want to do it, tell them you don't want to do it. Stand up and say you don't want to do it, finish. There's also the question that we congratulate government for giving our sportsmen, although it's the beginning, but I'm sure it will increase, like to come to the sum which my learned friend has exposed for athletes. But we have to think about artists as well. You know, when they get all these people, they are not invited to sing in hotel. This is what I'm being told. They are not allowed to sing. They are not invited to sing in hotel, in shows at night. So we should at least look for a formula for them at their old age to earn their living, a honest living. And as we have done loan facilities for SMEs by the banks, some loans have also been written off. There is a request that they also, the artists, when they buy their equipment, they want to renew their equipment, that they have these facilities of low interest, non-guaranteed loan, and those who are indebted be given the opportunity to have, I don't know whether all or part of their loans be write-off, as we have done in other cases. So these are issues that probably the Minister of Art and Culture can have a look at it. And as Honorable Gayan is listening to me, probably there is that artists paying in the hotels. It would seem that most of the hotels now do have their own in-house group of artists, and our international artists who sell, which you take with you when you go abroad for the forum, international forum. Unfortunately, now they are getting less and less access to hotel. So probably here again, it's like taxis in the hotel. They have their own group, two organizations, so many taxis are available. So probably for the artists, an effort has to be made towards the hotel, so that there's a limit to a quota, how much in 5 nights, at least 2 nights to the national singers and in their in-house one. Anyway, this is a formula which you can work with these gentlemen, and I'm just saying what the request they have said. Now, my loss will be on education. Madam Speaker, too late, my friend. We all agree that education is of fundamental issue. Its importance is of paramount importance for us, for our children. It's only through education that we can climb the ladder, the social ladder. We all have to. But then when we come with reform, one will expect to have consensus, consultation. Education has to be reformed. It can't remain static. But unfortunately, this Minister of Education, nothing personal, has an habit of making a practice that she applied something first, takes action, start to implement, then consultation. We had this with regard to the 9-year schooling. There was no debate in the House. Consultation started in December, when it was supposed to be in operation in January. The minister will reply, please keep quiet, you are not Minister of Education. Huh? Now, skill development. 310 million announced for training centers. Funding for the reimbursement of the UTM, the Uni de Mascarin, etc. Again, what guarantee of cost-effective spending? Have there been a due diligence with regard to this university? When we were informed that there will be, very soon, a higher education bill. There's no mention in the budget, sure, but before we go and put in money here, there, we must do a constat. We must have a look what is the nature of these universities. We know what has happened with regard to the free buildings for the Polytechnic. How the director of audit was harsh for wasting money. And now, when the director of audit has intervened to see that we are wasting money, 750 million in infrastructure, equipment and facilities, in order to bypass the director of audit and to get parliamentary control out of the Polytechnic, a company is formed, Knowledge Parks Limited. So when we ask a question about Knowledge Parks Limited, no, this is a private company governed by the statute, etc. This is the reply we'll have when start to be operational. Now the minister has answered because there is not much to say. They are not operational. So when it comes to emotional, when we start to hear about things, same for the 9-year schooling. It has been implemented, but I hear there is still some problem at primary level, but at secondary level, there is much concern. There is much concern. I had the opportunity during the weekend to speak to teachers, managers, students, and especially teachers of the pre-voc school. They don't know exactly what will happen to the pre-voc school. And now with 5 credits, are we going to close some of the private school, colleges? Because they won't be able to do HSC. The pre-voc, we don't know what to do with pre-voc. What will happen to this stuff? So no, you will reply. I'm happy you are speaking after me. So what will happen? There's still much confusion with regard to secondary school. So it is important that we know where we are going. But there is one fundamental issue which has not been addressed. Goal 4 of UN Sustainable Development Goal, Goal 4, which reads as follows, which was adopted in 2015. Ensure inclusive and equitable quality education and promote lifelong learning opportunities for all. Number 1, inclusive and equitable education. No provision in this budget to address glaring inequalities in education. Example, no comprehensive plan for early childhood education. ZEP is still being reformed every year, with no assessment of the effectiveness so far. Whilst I'm talking of ZEP, what about the hot meal, which each people were supposed to have? There's one ZEP in my constituency, Richier Government School. Do you know, Madam Speaker, that manger gâté pe donne jet? Children of 4 years old are being given 10 pain with achar, not even achar, soya early morning, soya in their bread, which smell. I have been there personally. On 1 o'clock I received a phone call and I heard that smell, that bread, and impossible to eat, Madam Speaker. And these children, probably 4 years old, they are not aware. They will eat it. Yeah, but you have to choose these contractors, rightly pointed out by my friend. Contractors are funny, but they were not chosen with the consultation of the PTA. The PTA wasn't aware. Quality education. Oui, quand on passe, il n'y a pas besoin de dire que c'est pourri, mon camarade. Quality education. Clear downward trend in CPE. There is a downward trend in the CPE pass rates and SE success rates over the last 5 years with no remedial measures. Okay, you carry on when you finish.
Should I carry on?
Yeah, but they are talking. Yes. Half an hour, but more than that. Lifelong learning. Again, adult education is totally absent. Communication policy of the ministry have already spoken, a total failure. But I can't conclude before referring to the holistic. That's a really sad story. The holistic student who were asked to follow courses at the YEP. I think there were 100 something of them. And when they reached that, when they were recruited, the Honorable Minister went to Saro, made a speech there. And I quote, "You encourage us to stay in the program through YEP on induction day by saying we would have a priority in getting the job. However,
On a point of order, the honourable member is mentioning something that I've never uttered, and I will not accept it. No, on a point of personal clarification, I will not admit that certain words be put in my mouth when they were never uttered.
I won't put words in your mouth. I'll get words out of my mouth.
Can we have some order in the House, please?
Yes.
Getting late. Everybody is tired. It's getting late. So can we have some order? And I've asked the honourable member. He can go on for another 1 hour also. Yes, because we can discuss. He can go on for 1 hour.
Now, these people were given the impression when they were recruited by YEP that they will be employed subsequently, that they will be qualified to be employed in the service. Unfortunately, they don't reach the criteria of the PSC. Only one, not some. In a reply, you said some. Now, we will still make PQ number B276. As far as part B of the question, this is the recruitment, is carried out by the PSC as per approved. I have been given to understand, they have misled you, that some of the YEP trainees, not some, only one. So these people have gone through training. Only one has been recruited to PSC. What a waste of money. For 2 years, you have spent a lot of them, but unfortunately they can, for 1 year, a lot of money, but unfortunately...
Can we have some order, please?
May I ask the Honourable Minister? That these youngsters, they have spent their money, their time, to study for a specific purpose. I don't know if you have to amend the regulation or to what to do, but see to it that those who have followed the heuristic. So let me conclude, Madam Speaker. We are here in this house. We are here in this parliament, Madam Speaker, for the Mauritian people that choose both of us to bring them to the blooming of the country in every possible meaning of the term. But unfortunately, we have today a government led by a nominated Prime Minister. Somebody who has not been chosen by the people, who has failed the expectation of our nation and our youth. When we see what's happening in this government, you can't blame the youth if today they are turning their back on politics. But let me address the youth of this nation, telling them that not all politicians are the same. There is still good, honest politician on this side of the house who don't believe in transfers, who don't believe in favoritism, who don't believe in chicopé, who don't believe in wastage of public funds. Madam Speaker, every time we challenge the nomination of the Prime Minister as Prime Minister of this country, his only reply is what? We have the West ministerial system. And he will always refer us to the British Prime Minister, Mrs. Theresa May. May I ask him now, if truly he believes in the West ministerial system, if truly he believes that it's the people of this country who will choose their Prime Minister, follow the step of Theresa May, believes in the West ministerial system. If he believes in the, he always refers to Theresa May, but have the guts, follow what Theresa May has done in England, dissolve Parliament, go for election, and let the people of this country choose the Prime Minister, not the founder. Thank you, Madam Speaker.